All right, so today we're going to do evaluating expressions, and we're going to do adding and subtracting fractions. I know that we do the adding subtraction fraction early on in elementary school, but this is one of the things that a lot of students struggle with. With the adding and subtracting fractions, something that you have to with is that you need a common denominator when you're adding, where you need to find a common denominator. When you're multiplying fractions, you just multiply numerator by numerator and denominator by denominator. When we're dividing, we have to inverse the second fraction and then multiply. The important thing also to remember is that you always have to reduce your fraction to your lowest term. Okay? You can't leave the fraction as is. All right? Always you have to reduce. Let's look at some of these examples. So if I have 1/8 plus 5/6, how can I add these two fractions? Because I'm adding, what must I have?
We have to get the common denominator.
Common denominator, right? So I need to have a number, right, that is common for both 8 and 6, all right? So what are the multiples of 8? What are the multiples of 6?
The least common is 24.
Is 24. And how do you know that? How can you find that?
By taking the LCM.
The LCM, so the lowest common multiple. You have to look for the multiples. Multiples mean your multiplication table by 6 and your multiplication table by 8. Okay? So basically I'm looking at what are my multiples of 6. So I have 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, right? These are my multiples of 6. My multiples of 8 is 8, 16, 24, right? So right now, I can stop because I see that 24 is my lowest common multiple of both numbers 6 and 8. Does that make sense to you? Okay? So what do I multiply 8 by to give me 24? 3, right? It's 1, 2, 3. So I have to multiply the 8 by the 3. Anything I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. So I have to multiply the numerator by 3. Okay? How about 6? What do I multiply 6 by to give me 24? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So I have to multiply 6 by 4, and I have to do the same for the numerator, okay? When I'm dealing with fractions, anything I do to the denominator, I have to perform for the numerator. I have to do it for the numerator. So that gives me 3 over 24 plus 20 over 24. Okay? Now, looking at this, we know that it's a common denominator. We can see that both of them have the same denominator. So what I can do for this one right now, I can add the numerator. Okay? So now you add the numerator, and then you leave the denominator as 24. So adding the numerator, that's going to give me 23. Over 24. Okay? Now I look at my numbers, my numerator and denominator. Can I reduce them? No. There's no common factors. I can't divide them both by the same number, right? Are you guys okay with this? Okay? If I have 2 over 3 minus 5 over 6, my denominator are 3 and 6. What is my lowest common multiple between 3 and 6?
18.
Can it be 6?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my multiples of 3 is 3 6, right? 9, 12, multiples of 6, 6, 12. You see that 6 is the first common number, right? The first common multiple. So 6 can be my common denominator. What do I multiply 3 by to give me 6? 2. I have to do the same thing for the denominator. Do I have to multiply 6 by anything? No, it's already 6, right? So I leave that the same. So that's going to be 4 over 6 minus 5 over 6. So that gives me negative 1 over 6. When you're multiplying fractions, the good thing about it is you don't need to have a common denominator, okay? So when I'm multiplying fractions, I multiply the numerator by the and the denominator by the denominator, okay? So I have 6 over 20. Can I leave it like this, or do I need to reduce? What can I divide both of them by? 2, right? I can divide both the 6 and the 20 by 2. So if I divide by 2 to reduce, that gives me 3 over 10. Can I reduce any further? No. That's my final answer. With the division, it's a similar process, but I have to do a step first. I want to change my division into multiplication. Okay? So what I do to do that, I keep my first fraction. I change the division into multiplication. Then I flip the second fraction, so it becomes 5 over 4. Okay? And now, since it's a multiplication, all what I have to do is I have to multiply top by top, bottom by bottom. Okay? Can I reduce? Divide both of them by 2, and that would give me 5 over 6. All right, and then at this point, there's nothing I can do. That's it. I can't reduce any further. I stop. All right. Now, you won't have any questions, straight questions to add and subtract and divide and multiply fractions, but it might appear in our like questions that we do in grade 12. Okay. Evaluating expression is always going to show up, right? Again, it won't be simple evaluation. It will be probably more like either exponential or it could be sinusoidal, it could be trigonometry, it could be anything. In this case, I have simple expressions, right? They give you a value for the letters, and they want you to evaluate. Okay? Evaluate, that means you're going to plug in that value that's given to you in for the letters and find the answer. Okay? Find what is that equal to. So if I have x, y, they want you to evaluate x times y, where x equals to 5 and y equals to 2 over 5. So what do I do?
The values of 3 with
So instead of x, what do I replace x with?
5.
I replace it with 5, and I replace y with 2 over 5. Okay? And then what's happening between the x and y? There is multiplication. So it's going to be 5 times 2 over 5. Okay? 5 is a whole number. Any whole number has a fraction of over 1, right? So to evaluate this, I just have to multiply top by top, bottom by bottom. So that gives me 10 over 5, which reduced to 2. I'm going to do this one with you. I'm going to leave you to do F and H by yourself, okay? So I have 2x plus y times 2 minus y, where x equals to 2 and y equals to negative 2. So what do I do? So I'm replacing x with 2 and y with negative 2. So it's going to be 2 times 2, right? Plus negative 2. And then 2 times 2 minus negative 2. I have to do the multiplication first inside the bracket. So 2 times 2, that's 4. A positive and a negative gives me a negative. And then I have 4 again. And negative gives me a positive. Are we okay with this? Four minus 2 is 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. So that gives me a value of 12.